That was the morning I realized silence can be louder than any accusation. My mother's kitchen had always been the heart of our home, but that day, it felt like a courtroom. I was 28, finally comfortable in my own skin after years of trying to be invisible. My sister Claire had always been the bright one, the one who could walk into a room and own it without saying a word. She was 32, married to Marcus for 6 years, and according to my parents, living proof that hard work and dedication paid off. Me? I was just Sophia. The quiet daughter who worked her 9 to 5 as a data analyst, came home to her small apartment, and didn't cause trouble. I wasn't married, wasn't particularly social, and apparently, that made me less interesting. The comment came out of nowhere during Sunday brunch. My father set down his coffee cup with that particular clink that usually preceded his observations about life. "You know, Sophia," he said, looking at me over his reading glasses, "you could learn something from your sister. Claire built everything she has through sheer determination. No handouts, no shortcuts. Just pure effort." My mother nodded, cutting her pancakes into precise squares. "That's true. She's always been so independent, never needed anyone to hold her hand." I felt my fork pause halfway to my mouth. The pancakes suddenly tasted like cardboard. Claire smiled that gracious smile of hers, the one that looked humble but somehow made everyone else feel smaller. "Oh, you're too kind. I've just been lucky, that's all." Lucky. The word echoed in my head. I thought about the countless times over the past 3 years I'd listened to Claire complain about how she and Marcus couldn't afford their mortgage payments, how the stress was affecting their marriage, how she wished she could just catch a break. I thought about the arrangement we'd made, the one where I sent money to help with their situation. Not much, just what I could afford. $1,200 a month, transferred directly to Claire because she'd said it would be easier that way, that she could apply it to their mortgage immediately without Marcus knowing and feeling like a failure as a provider. "Sophia helps out too," I said quietly, in her own way. My father waved his hand dismissively. "Of course you do, honey. We're not saying you don't contribute, we're just saying Claire has that entrepreneurial spirit, that drive. She doesn't wait for life to happen to her." Something cracked inside me, not loudly, not dramatically, just a small, clean break, like ice on a frozen pond. "You're right," I said, setting down my fork. "She definitely doesn't wait around." The table went quiet for a moment, sensing something in my tone. But then my mother changed the subject to neighborhood gossip, and the moment passed. But I couldn't let it pass. Not anymore. That night, I sat in my apartment with my laptop open, staring at my bank statements. 3 years of transfers, $1,200 every single month, like clockwork, 36 payments, $43,200. I'd been happy to help. Family was family, right? And Claire had seemed so desperate, so stressed. She'd cried on the phone about how they might lose the house, how Marcus was working overtime but it still wasn't enough, how she didn't know what they'd do if they couldn't make it work. But if my parents didn't know I'd been helping, what exactly had Claire been telling them? I called her the next morning. "Hey, can we meet for coffee? I need to talk to you about something." Her voice was bright, cheerful. "Sure, is everything okay?" "Yeah, I need to ask you something in person." We met at the cafe near her house, the one with the overpriced lattes and the vintage furniture that made everything look Instagram perfect. Claire arrived 15 minutes late, apologizing about traffic, carrying shopping bags from boutique stores I couldn't afford. Sorry, she said, setting down 3 bags under the table. "I was just picking up a few things for the house. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I'd been shopping at Target for the past 3 years, carefully budgeting every dollar so I could help her keep her house. "Claire," I said, stirring my coffee slowly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." She looked up, concerned. "Of course. What's wrong?" "The money I've been sending you, for the mortgage. Has that been helping?" Her face didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Oh, absolutely. You've been a lifesaver, Sophia. Really. We couldn't have managed without you." "Good," I said, because yesterday at brunch, when Dad was talking about how you built everything on your own, I realized he had no idea I'd been helping you, and I wondered why that was. She laughed, but it sounded wrong. Forced. Well, you know how Dad is. He gets these ideas in his head about who we are. I didn't want to burst his bubble. He's so proud of me, and I didn't want to seem like I needed help. So you just let him think you did it all alone. Sophia, don't be like this. You know how complicated family dynamics are. I do know, I said, which is why I'm curious about something else. If you and Marcus were struggling so much with the mortgage, how come your property records show it's been paid off for 2 years? The color drained from her face. What? I looked it up. Public records. Your mortgage was paid in full 24 months ago, right around the time you and Marcus refinanced. And you know what's interesting? I didn't stop sending you money, because you never told me to. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Sophia, I can explain. Please do, because I've sent you $14,400 since you paid off that mortgage. And I'm really curious where that money went. She looked around the cafe like she was searching for an escape route. I was going to tell you. Things got complicated. Marcus and I were having problems, and I thought if I could just save up enough, maybe we could work things out. Go to counseling, take a trip, fix things. So you lied to me. I didn't lie, I just didn't correct your assumption. Claire, I literally asked you every few months if you still needed help. You said yes every single time. You cried about how stressed you were about money. I was stressed about money! Just because the mortgage is paid doesn't mean we don't have other expenses. I stared at her. This person I'd grown up with, this person I'd trusted without question. Did you use any of my money for what you said you would? She didn't answer immediately, and that told me everything. Some of it, she finally said. Most of it. I mean, money is money, right? It all goes into the same account. It's not like I was tracking every dollar. I said quietly. I was tracking every dollar. Because I sacrificed things to send you that money. I didn't take vacations. I didn't upgrade my car when it started breaking down. I lived small so you could live comfortably. Nobody asked you to do that. The words hung in the air between us like a slap. You did, I said. You called me crying. You told me you didn't know how you'd keep your house. You begged me for help. That was years ago. Things change. Then why didn't you tell me things changed? She picked up her coffee, set it back down without drinking. Because I knew you'd judge me. You'd make it into this big thing, just like you're doing now. Making it into a big thing? Claire, this is a big thing. This is $43,000. Her eyes widened. It's not that much. Actually, it is exactly that much. I have the statements. Sophia, come on, we're family. Family helps each other. You can't put a price on that. You're right, I said, standing up. You can't. Which is why it hurts so much that you did. I left her there, surrounded by her shopping bags, and I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. But I wasn't done. I couldn't be done, because this wasn't just about money. It was about 3 years of being invisible, of being the responsible one who nobody acknowledged, of watching someone else take credit for your sacrifices. I spent the next 2 weeks building a file. Every bank transfer, every text message where Claire had asked for help or thanked me for sending money, every conversation we'd had about their financial struggles. I documented everything with the same precision I used at work when analyzing data patterns. And then I did something that surprised even me. I scheduled a family dinner. My mother was delighted. Oh, Sophia, you never host. This is wonderful. My father agreed to come, though he seemed surprised. Everything okay, kiddo? Everything's great, I told him. I just thought it was time we all got together, really talked. Claire tried to get out of it. She called me 3 times with excuses. Marcus was tired, she wasn't feeling well, they had other plans. But I persisted, and eventually she agreed. The night of the dinner, I made my mother's pot roast, set the table with the nice dishes I rarely used, lit candles, made everything look perfect and normal and safe. They arrived together, my parents in my father's old sedan, Claire and Marcus in their newer SUV. Marcus was a nice guy, quiet, worked in construction. He seemed tired, older than his 35 years. We ate. We talked about weather and work and the neighbor's new fence, normal things, safe things. And then, over dessert, my mother brought it up again. Claire, tell Sophia about the promotion Marcus got. Isn't it wonderful? They're doing so well. Claire shifted uncomfortably. Mom, I'm sure Sophia doesn't want to hear about that. Of course she does. Your sister's success is something to celebrate. You two have worked so hard to build your life. I set down my coffee cup. The clink echoed through the room. Actually, I said, I'd love to hear about it. I love hearing about how well Claire's doing, how she built everything from nothing, how independent she is. My father beamed. Exactly. That's the spirit. You could learn from that attitude, Sophia. Not that you're doing badly, but Claire's really mastered the art of making things happen. She has, I agreed. She's very good at making things happen. Claire's eyes met mine across the table, pleading. I opened my laptop, which I'd kept on the side table. I actually wanted to show you all something. It's a little project I've been working on. Sophia, maybe now isn't the time, Claire started. It's a financial analysis, I continued. Nothing too complicated, just tracking some patterns over the past 3 years. I turned the screen toward my parents. On it was a spreadsheet, color-coded and clear. Dates, amounts, notes. What is this? My mother asked, leaning forward. This is every payment I've made to Claire and Marcus over the past 3 years. $1,200 a month, every month, for 36 months. $43,200 total. The room went silent. My father looked from the screen to Claire. What is she talking about? Dad, it's not... Claire started. It started 3 years ago, I said, my voice steady, when Claire called me crying. She said they were going to lose their house, that Marcus was working overtime but it still wasn't enough, that she didn't know what they were going to do. She asked if I could help with the mortgage just temporarily until they got back on their feet. My mother's hand went to her mouth. I said yes. Of course I said yes. She's my sister, so I sent money every month. I cut back on everything. I stopped going out. I wore the same clothes until they fell apart. I drove my car until it was barely running because I was sending every spare dollar to help save their house. Marcus's face had gone pale. Claire? And you know what's funny? I continued. Their house wasn't in danger. I checked the records. They refinanced 3 years ago and paid off their mortgage 2 years ago. But Claire never told me to stop sending money. She never said, "Hey, Sophia, we're good now, thanks for helping." She just kept taking it. "Sophia, you're making this sound worse than it is," Claire said, her voice rising. "Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you lied to me for 3 years, took my money under false pretenses, and let our parents believe you were this self-made success story while I was funding a significant portion of your lifestyle." My father turned to Claire, his face a mixture of confusion and anger. "Is this true?" "It's complicated, Dad. Sophia's leaving out a lot of context." "What context?" I asked. "The context where you cried on the phone? The context where you sent me texts thanking me for being your lifeline? The context where you bought a new car and remodeled your kitchen while I was eating ramen for dinner 3 nights a week? Nobody forced you to send that money," Claire shouted. "You're right," I said quietly. "Nobody forced me. I chose to help my sister because I thought she needed it, because I believed her when she said she was struggling, because I'm stupid enough to think that family means something." Marcus stood up abruptly. "I need to talk to my wife. Now." They stepped into the hallway, but we could all hear their voices rising and falling, accusatory and defensive. My mother was crying softly. "Sophia, honey, I had no idea." "I know you didn't. That's the point. Everyone thought Claire did this all on her own. Everyone praised her for being so capable and independent, and I was just there, the boring daughter who didn't do anything remarkable." My father cleared his throat. He looked older suddenly, tired. "Sophia, I'm sorry. We should have seen this. We should have asked." "It's not your fault," I said. "But I need you to understand something. When you praise Claire for doing things on her own, you're dismissing the fact that she didn't do it on her own. She had help, my help, and I didn't ask for credit, but I also didn't expect to be erased." Claire and Marcus came back into the room. Marcus looked gutted. Claire's mascara was running. "I didn't know," Marcus said to me. "About most of it. I knew she'd borrowed money from you once or twice early on, but I thought she'd paid you back. I didn't know it was still happening." Claire sank into her chair, covering her face with her hands. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice muffled. "You want me to pay you back? Fine, we'll figure out a payment plan. I don't want your money, I said. I want you to tell the truth. I want Mom and Dad to know that I've been contributing to this family in ways that matter, even if they're not visible. And I want you to stop taking credit for things you didn't do alone. I never said I did it alone. You didn't have to say it. You just let everyone believe it. And that's almost worse. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. Sophia, we see you. I promise we see you. Do you? Because for 3 years I've been invisible. I've been the quiet one, the one who doesn't make waves, the one who just shows up and does what's needed without asking for applause. And I've been okay with that. But I'm not okay with being erased completely. The dinner ended shortly after that. My parents left first, my mother hugging me tightly, my father promising we'd talk more soon. Marcus left next, kissing his wife on the forehead but not meeting her eyes. Claire lingered, standing in my doorway like she didn't know what to do with herself. I'm sorry, she said finally. I really am. I got caught up in appearances and trying to look like I had it all together, and I lost sight of what mattered. You lost sight of who was actually holding you up, I said. I know, and I'll make it right. Somehow, I don't want your money, I repeated. I want you to remember that when someone helps you, you don't get to pretend they don't exist. You don't get to rewrite history to make yourself look better. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and left. The weeks that followed were strange. My parents called more often, asked more questions about my life. My father apologized 3 separate times for not noticing how hard I'd been working to support the family. My mother sent me a care package with my favorite cookies and a card that said simply, "We're proud of you." Claire and I didn't talk for a month, and then one morning I got a text. Coffee? My treat. I want to make things right. I almost said no, but something in me, the part that still remembered us as kids sharing secrets and dreams, made me say yes. We met at the same cafe, but this time felt different. Claire was quieter, less polished. She ordered our coffees and came back with an envelope. "This isn't enough," she said, sliding it across to me. "But it's a start. $3,000. I've set up a payment plan to pay you back everything over the next 3 years. Claire, let me finish. I'm also going to therapy. Because Marcus made it very clear that if I can't be honest with the people I love, then I need to figure out why. And I've started volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit, helping people understand budgeting and debt, because I realized I don't even understand my own relationship with money. I opened the envelope, saw the check inside, and felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. "I don't need the money back," I said, "but I need you to mean this. I need you to actually change, not just say pretty words and go back to how things were." "I know," she said, "and I'm going to prove it to you, even if it takes years." We talked for 2 hours that day, really talked in a way we hadn't since we were teenagers. She told me about the pressure she'd felt to be perfect, to be the successful older sister, to prove she'd made the right choices in life. I told her about feeling invisible, about how exhausting it was to always be reliable, but never celebrated. We didn't fix everything that day. Some things take time, take consistent effort, take proof through actions rather than promises. But we started. 3 months later, at another family dinner, this one at my parents' house, my father raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said, "to both my daughters, to Sophia, who taught us that quiet strength is still strength, and to Claire, who's learning that asking for help isn't weakness, and that honesty is the foundation of everything." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as the quiet one, not as the reliable one, not as anyone's shadow, just as Sophia. And that was enough. That night, I drove home through streets lit by street lamps and the glow of houses filled with families. I thought about silence and truth and the long road between betrayal and forgiveness. I thought about how sometimes the people who love you most are also the people who can hurt you deepest. But mostly, I thought about how speaking up, even when your voice shakes, even when you're terrified of the consequences, is the only way to stop being invisible. The peace I'd bought by finally telling the truth, by refusing to be erased anymore, was the first real thing I'd owned in years. And unlike money, unlike houses, unlike any material thing, nobody could take it away from me. That silence, the one that had been so heavy in my mother's kitchen that morning, had transformed into something different. A quiet that came from resolution rather than suppression, from truth rather than secrets. And in that quiet, I could finally hear my own voice. And it was strong enough to carry me forward.